Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into some really fascinating territory. It might sound a little out there at first, but honestly, stick with us.
Yeah, it offers a pretty intriguing way to look at things.
Exactly. We're talking about something called karmic algae. Now, this isn't about, glowing auras or anything like that.
No, not at all. It's more subtle, like a kind of spiritual residue.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to put it. The source material we've been looking at suggests it's there, almost imperceptible, clinging to the mundane bits of our daily lives.
That's right. We're not diving into high-flying spiritualism here. The text describes something much more understated, almost like an energetic dust, maybe, settling in those overlooked corners.
Big dust. I like that.
So our goal in this deep dive is really to unpack what this karmic algae thing is, how it supposedly forms and what the text calls the mid-tier cognitive sediment layer.
Which sounds very technical.
It does, but you can basically think of it as the energetic atmosphere of our social habits in repetitive places, And crucially, why understanding this might actually give you some surprising insights into your own experiences and, the spaces you're in every single day.
Right. We've been immersed in this text. It's called pasted text. And our mission today is to pull out these core ideas and figure out what they could mean. For you, for us.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the text starts with this idea of the ether as a kind of collecting field for this karmic algae. But it's not the usual mystical ether, is it? What's the text actually describing?
Well, what's fascinating is how specific it is. It's definitely not some lofty spiritual realm. It's described more like a permeable veil of stored frequency.
This looks frequency, okay.
Imagine all the, conversations, frustrations, rushed thoughts in a busy office day. The text suggests they don't just vanish.
They leave something behind.
Kind of an energetic imprint on the space itself. That's this ether. A subtle field holding all that accumulated energy from social behavior, repetition, and those unspoken intentions simmering underneath.
So it's like the vibe of a place, but maybe more structured or layered. And it's not everywhere equally, right? Where does it get thicker?
It points to places defined by repetition, really common environments. Think transit hubs, endless commutes, right?
Stations, airports.
Exactly. Hallways echoing the same footsteps day after day. Call centers with those recited scripts.
So definitely call centers.
Public parks, lobbies, even supermarket aisles where people make the same choices over and over. These are the spots where this ether supposedly concentrates.
Makes sense. Places with ingrained patterns.
Yeah.
And it's not just the actions, is it? The text says emotions and suppressed expressions add to it. How do they fertilize it?
Yeah, that's a really key point. The idea is when feelings aren't fully expressed, or when there's that gap between inside and outside, it leaves residue.
Like?
Well, think about an unreturned smile. That little offering just hangs there, unreceived. Or a white lie you tell every day out of obligation.
It creates a little bit of dissonance?
Exactly. Or doing a task you resent. That injects a certain energy. These unreleased things, these suppressed expressions, they act like nutrients, basically, enriching the ether, making it fertile ground for this karmic algae.
So it's the repetition plus the emotional undercurrents getting trapped. And then these repeated gestures actually start to, carve paths. It mentions etching ruts in an etheric lattice leading to condensation. Can you break that down?
Yeah, the etching ruts image is quite vivid, like a path in the woods getting clearer each time someone walks it.
Okay.
Similarly, the text suggests when the same gestures, same behaviors happen repeatedly in one place, they create these energetic pathways. Over time, they deepen, become channels, and with enough repetition and that emotional fertilizer,
It thickens up.
an energetic density starts to form. That's the condensation the text calls karmic algae.
Okay, so we've got the ether, the repetition, the emotions. Now, the core question, what is karmic algae exactly, according to the source?
Okay, the definition given is the condensation of ambient intent without volition.
Without volition. That sounds important.
Crucial. It means it's not something we try to create. It rises from eroded attention, from doing things on autopilot. The source uses a great analogy. If karma is the ledger, the record book of actions, then karmic algae is like the moisture between the pages.
Oh, wow. Okay. That subtle dampness you don't notice.
Exactly, that non-conscious buildup from all those unpresent decisions, the autopilot stuff.
Moisture between the pages. I like that. It suggests it's sort of pervasive but overlooked. And it doesn't think or want anything.
Definitely not. The text is clear. It does not think. It does not want. But it remembers.
Remembers. How?
Not conscious memory, more like a passive imprint of the patterns, the intentions that formed it. A record of what happened, even if no one was paying full attention.
Okay. And it sounds like this stuff is maybe foundational. For other psychic things, it mentions egregores, thought forms. How does it relate?
That's a fascinating angle. The idea is that karmic algae can be the starting point, yeah? The raw material for more defined structures like egregores.
But it's different.
Very different because it lacks intentional creation. It wasn't made on purpose, it was just left behind.
Left behind.
The text has another great image, like sweat on the collar of a ghost.
Ah, gross, but vivid.
Right. This residue, this algae, then becomes something other entities, like ghosts maybe, are said to lean on. They draw energy or patterns from it.
So it's the psychic primordial ooze, almost. And it operates on specific frequencies. Infraemotive, paralinguistic, metatemporal. Those sound subtle.
Extremely subtle. Infraemotive suggests frequencies below conscious feeling, like the hum of a fridge. You tune it out, but it's there, affecting the room's feel.
Okay, background noise.
Paralinguistic is about what goes with language tone, unspoken intent, the energy behind words.
The stuff between the lines?
Exactly. And metatemporal.
Yep.
That suggests it exists sort of outside normal linear time, not quite memory, but an echo, a lingering trace.
Wow. Okay, so it's this super subtle stuff forming from repetition and unexpressed feelings in certain places. Let's get specific. How does it actually build up?
It's gradual. Starts with a repeated action, but it's the layering of micro-emotions, fatigue, irritation, even suppressed joy that fuels it.
Micro-emotions.
Think about touching a door handle thousands of times. Each touch carries a tiny bit of your energy state, or words spoken into a headset day after day.
Right. All those tiny moments add up.
Even walking down the same corridor without thinking, it all layers up.
And the text points to specific triggers that make it worse, right? What are those?
Yeah, 4 main ones stand out. First, ritualized labor with minimized autonomy. Repetitive jobs where you have little control.
Assembly lines, maybe? Data entry?
Could be. Second, consistent surveillance without acknowledgement. That feeling of being watched, but impersonally.
Security cameras everywhere.
Third, inauthentic social interaction. Basically role-playing instead of being genuine, like forced customer service smiles.
Wow. And the last one?
Energetic tension, unexpressed frustration, inner conflict just hanging in the air.
Those all make sense. Situations where we're not fully present or authentic, and even one act, repeated under those conditions, can be a starting point.
Yeah.
It mentions spore of them.
Exactly, like an energetic seed. One repeated act under constraint can be a spore, and as these spores accumulate from everyone,
They form a film.
a biofilm of unspent karma, yeah, which can then stick to surfaces, memories, even the building itself. It's like our autopilot habits leave energetic mold stores everywhere.
Energetic mold.
Ah.
Lovely. So this stuff gathers in liminal zones. What are those and why there?
Liminal zones, yeah, really interesting idea. They're the in-between places,
Right.
either one thing or another,
Thresholds.
thresholds, transitions, physical ones like doorways, but also psychological ones.
Yes.
The space between roles we play, between social masks.
Correct.
The algae seems to thrive in that ambiguity and the psychic half-light, where our attention just sort of flickers.
So it's the residue left in the gaps.
Mhm.
The text gives some really vivid examples of these reefs. What were they?
Yeah, they make it tangible. A hallway of silent decisions, all those unspoken thoughts and judgments in transit.
Mm-hmm.
The edge of a room with avoided eye contact. That zone of awkwardness and tension.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe the most relatable, the place where you always check your phone, not to connect, but to flee.
Oof. Yes. Definitely have one of those spots, a little escape hatch. Wow. To think that contributes.
It's a focal point for scattered attention, right? Prime breeding ground, according to this.
We've all felt those undercurrents.
Okay.
Okay, so what happens when this stuff really builds up? It talks about a well forming, which sounds deep.
The well is like a concentration point. It's not just a surface layer anymore. It's sunk in, formed a feedback basin,
A feedback basin.
where the repetitive emotional tones that created it start echoing themselves.
So,
A self-reinforcing loop of old energy. But the text stresses it's not haunted, it's exhausted.
exhausted, not haunted. Okay, that's different. Like a stagnant pool.
Exactly, and stepping into one. Well, the text suggests you might feel things.
Like what kind of sensation?
It lists a few unsettling possibilities. Memory loops of thought that are not your own. Fleeting echoes.
Oh,
A sudden urge to perform a behavior you've long abandoned, like psychic muscle memory kicking in.
what is it?
You might feel inexplicable guilt, boredom, or grief that isn't yours. Just remnants from the well's history. Even phantom smells or sounds are mentioned as echoes.
It's like walking into an emotional echo chamber from the past. And this isn't magic, it's pattern density pressure.
That's the term used, yeah. Like the sheer weight of repeated patterns leaking into the present.
So if someone always feels vaguely anxious in a specific building, could this well thing be part of it, even subconsciously?
That's exactly the kind of subtle influence the text suggests. The environment subtly tuning you through this old residue.
Okay. Now this algae, it sounds inert, but it can become the basis for something more. Contra or not, these sound interesting. Maybe a bit creepy.
Yeah, contra or not took it a step further. Described as semi-entities, reflective intelligences born of dense behavioral sediment.
Reflective intelligences.
Like echoes becoming so strong they seem almost alive, but they don't have their own drive. They're not spirits, not AI. The text calls it mirror life.
Mirror life.
Wow.
And unlike the basic algae, these concha can respond.
Yes, they're reactive, not proactive. They don't do things on their own, but they respond to frequencies around them. They can become aware of observers.
Aware.
And interestingly, being named apparently helps solidify them, makes them behave as if they exist within the environment's script.
So just noticing them or naming them gives them more substance, and what do?
Known behaviors include reflecting moods back, so they amplify the vibe. They can reinforce psychic loops, keeping those old patterns going.
Making it harder to change.
Seems like it. And they can develop personality clusters based on recurring archetypes in the place: the skeptic, the boss, the trickster, the ignored one. The text even suggests some subtle hauntings in mundane places might just be dense concha echoes feeding off the algae.
So that weird feeling in the office break room, or that argument that always happens by the stairs, could be echoes of these concha. Mind blown. Okay, so how do we deal with this stuff? Can we, prune the psychic weeds?
Well, the emphasis isn't on cleansing or control. It's more about recognition. Using the algae as feedback. Seeing what's been repeated without awareness, it's informative, not necessarily bad.
So, gain self-awareness by noticing it. What practical things does the text suggest?
A few interesting practices. Listening to your behavior, spotting your own thoughtless repetitions. Those are the algae hotspots.
Okay, mindfulness of habits.
Holding still in a liminal space. Pausing in those in-between areas, noticing thoughts or feelings that arise. They might not be yours.
Interesting exercise.
Naming the unnoticed, speaking aloud the unspoken truths of daily rituals, bringing them into light illuminates the algae.
Giving voice to the routine.
And finally, mirroring it intentionally, deliberately acting absurdly or breaking a pattern.
Acting absurdly, like singing in the hallway.
Maybe. Something to disrupt the flow. The idea is to observe the energetic ripple it causes. Maybe shift the concha.
See the algae ripple? Love that image. And doing this might actually affect the concept.
The text suggests it might cause a brief shift, felt as static maybe, or a moment of clarity in the space. A temporary pattern interrupt.
Okay, so what if we just ignore it all? Is there a penalty for being oblivious?
It's not like ignoring a curse, the text says. It's more insidious, like forgetting to clean a lens.
Your perception gets warped.
Exactly. Things become unclear. You end up in a self-reflective maze logic. Stuck in loops without knowing why.
Sounds like a recipe for being stuck in a rut, personally and maybe even collectively. What happens in places with really old, dense fields of this stuff?
In those environments, you might see more emotional contagion without cause. Moods spreading like wildfire for no reason.
Okay.
A general feeling of drained vitality among people there.
Yeah, some places just feel draining.
People might show increased mimicry of old behavior, even newcomers subconsciously picking up old patterns.
Wow.
And just a pervasive sense of timelessness or unreality. Like the past is constantly bleeding through.
It sounds like places can get energetically stagnant, resistant to anything new, and this could affect whole institutions, cultures.
Exactly. The text argues that entire systems can get infected, leading to history looping, preventing new energies or ideas from taking root. It's a pretty big claim.
That subtle residue having macro effects.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, so if we can't scrub it away, how do we deal with it? Purification through consciousness? What's that mean?
The key is that karmic algae abhors clarity. It loves the unnoticed, the automatic.
So light disinfects.
Consciousness disinfects, yeah. The text suggests things like reverent disobedience, mindfully breaking ingrained patterns, intentional absurdity, injecting the unexpected, and silent observation, just paying attention.
Bringing awareness and authenticity where we've been on autopilot.
Yeah.
And it can't mimic authenticity, is that right?
Precisely. genuine presence, clear intention. They dissolve the conditions it needs. It's about cleansing not with tools, but with presence.
Okay.
Returning not with answers, but with attention. Carrying not remedies, but witness. By consciously engaging, we disrupt it.
This has been, well, really fascinating. A totally different way to look at everyday life. So, to wrap up, karmic algae is like the energetic leftovers of life.
The detritus of experience, yeah. Ambient compost of emotional repetition, maybe even a training ground for these contra things.
But not an enemy. More like a barometer, showing our unconscious density.
Exactly. Becoming aware gives you insight into your patterns and the vibe of your surroundings. It's about looking deeper.
So as you go about your day, maybe consider this. Where might this karmic algae be in your routines, in the places you go? Can you start to, see it?
Yeah, this deep dive is really an invitation to consider those subtle influences, the unseen layers shaping things without us always realizing.
Pay closer attention to the unseen. And on that note, we leave you with this thought to mull over. For what is unseen grows deepest in the places we call ours.
Thanks for taking a deep dive with us.